We're brilliant. Thanks, Andrew. So today, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we meet today. For me, I am based on the lands of the Wurundjeri people, and I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. Move on to the agenda slide. Thank you. Great. So a quick overview of the agenda for today. As you know, this webinar has been designed specifically for those working within education who are looking to responsibly introduce AI across their institution. There appears to be a lot of new faces registered for this webinar, which is fantastic. So I'll start with a very, very brief overview on who Engage Squared is and how we partner with Microsoft, and then we get into the good stuff. So Andrew, who has led many Copilot projects within our transformation and change practice, will give an overview on all things Copilot, Copilot Chat, and also dive into agents and how they differ. From there, we are delighted to be joined by Nathan Clark from Queensland University of Technology to share his first-hand experience of rolling out a Copilot pilot and the benefits he's seen. From there, we will move into the technical side of things with a look into AI maturity before Ray gives an overview into the data security considerations to be aware of. Finally, Felicity from Microsoft will be sharing what is on the roadmap for Copilot with some updates specifically for the education sector. So make sure that you stick around for that. And then from there, we'll provide some next steps for you depending on where you are in your Copilot journey. It is a jam-packed session today, so we don't have a dedicated Q&A segment, but we do encourage questions in the chat along the way. So please make sure that you are using that and we will come to you as the questions are asked. So, Engage Squared. Before I introduce our wonderful speakers, I just want to briefly cover who we are. So for anyone that's not familiar with us, we are a Microsoft Solutions partner. We are 11 years old here in Australia. We've got offices in New Zealand and Japan, and we specialise in creating people-friendly technology. So what that means in real terms is that we support organisations across all industries adopt technology in a way that makes sense to them. We are part of Microsoft's inner circle for Microsoft's AI business solutions, and we've been honoured with multiple Partner of the Year awards, not just for work in adoption and change management, but also for some of the solutions that we've built that make a real difference to frontline workers and enterprise teams. Finally, we have recently achieved our Microsoft Copilot specialisation, which feels particularly relevant for today's topic. This award is given to partners who demonstrate a deep technical expertise in security practices and a track record of successful implementations. Essentially, what this means for you is that this just reinforces that Engage Squared's position as a trusted Microsoft partner, helping organisations move from Copilot experiments with Copilot into a full rollout. Quickly just covering off who are today's speakers. So we have got Andrew, who is one of our senior M365 consultants here at Engage Squared. We've got Ray, who is our principal security consultant. He's actually ex-Microsoft, so very clued up with all things data security. Nathan Clark, who is an associate director over at Queensland University of Technology. And then, of course, Felicity McNish, who is a senior AI workforce solutions specialist at Microsoft. So that's my spiel done. I'm going to hand over to Andrew now, who will be talking all things Copilot. Over to you.
Thank you, Steph, and good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're from. I know a couple of us are just teetering into afternoon. I mean, Queensland, I'm 11:06 still, so we'll go over the morning. You're probably wondering, okay, so why are we here? What's worth discussing with Copilot? So before we kind of move into Copilot, what it can do, how it can support the education industry, I kind of want to take a little bit of a step back and just talk a bit more broadly around what some opportunities we're starting to see in the tech space in the education sector. So some of these might be ones you're very familiar with, or there might be ones you think, yeah, that's exactly what we need to solve. And if that's the case, great, you're in the right call. If it's not, stay anyway, but you might not be in the right call. Crucially, what we're starting to see come some really common themes from the back end of 2025, and as we get into 2026, is Copilot and AI. Not just Copilot, obviously all AI tools and technology is transforming the way we work, how we work, and most importantly, today is transforming the education industry. So that's also impacting our staff, our student, our academics, our researchers, our administrative team. All of those roles that make up an educational industry are being impacted by AI and Copilot in one way or another. So some of the key ones you can see on the slide, I'm not going to go through every single one in detail. I'm very conscious of time. Some of these you probably just know already, so we can get to the juicy part of the content today. But what we're seeing is when we start tying tools like Copilot to the education industry, they're able to add a real value. And you'll see today how we demonstrated that tangibly to show you where technology is actually helping solve challenges. And what we don't want to do is push technology for technology's sake. It's not just about getting the latest and greatest tools and then not doing anything with it. It's about making sure we're using them across real opportunities. So improving staff and student experience, that onboarding approach, reducing administrative burden, finding time, focus time, and freeing up time for high value activities like research or some teaching, modernizing legacy processes. So please put in the chat if anyone on here is still using legacy or kind of classic SharePoint sites or really outdated tools, or dare I say, still using paperwork. These are themes that we see all the time and where Copilot can transform once we kind of take a step back and modernize those processes. And another key thing we're starting to see is a lot of organizations go, oh yeah, Copilot can help me fix this really complicated, really niche scenario. Yes, it can probably, but what we try to find or where we find value first is by using Copilot for those quick wins, those low-hanging fruit, those scenarios that impact the masses before doing those targeted scenarios. And again, that's where a lot of organizations see the most benefit. And the final one is being able to scale safely and appropriately. So with new tools comes kind of all sorts of new concerns about security and risk, which Ray will talk about in a lot more detail later on. I guess key kind of takeaway from this slide is just understand that the real opportunity isn't Copilot itself. It's about using Copilot in the right way to transform education across that scale. Now, I'm hoping some of you have found very common challenges that you see on the screen here. So these aren't obviously all the challenges we expect education to be dealing with, but I personally have worked across a lot of education organizations over the last year or so, and I'm seeing the same core themes coming up over and over again. So this is probably kind of oversimplifying it, but what we're seeing is communication is a real big issue. Crisis communication, reaching staff when we need to, town halls, webinar when it's virtual or physical, reaching our staff, being able to spread knowledge, knowledge is spread across too many different systems and documents. And trying to find that single source of truth is really difficult. Spending a lot of time on manual and administrative work, small tasks that could be automated, and then also pressure. As I'm sure we all know, we're being asked to do more with less quite often. This isn't obviously just siloed to the education industry, but it's probably where it kind of impacts them the most. But what we've been able to do is use Copilot to solve a lot of these challenges using practical M365 Copilot solutions. So that's through connecting people and knowledge and conversations across the entire M365 ecosystem with just one tool, improving information architecture. Again, Ray will talk a little bit more about content governance and making sure Copilot is returning better answers. I know for a fact there'll be one person on this call who said to me, or will say, I use Copilot and it's making things up, it's hallucinating, it's pulling data out of nowhere that isn't true. So yes, that is a problem with all large language models, but there is ways you can make the output much more effective and safe, which we can support you with. And then the last one is kind of identifying those practical use cases that really target this challenge here. So it's about identifying personas and use cases and groups across your organization with highly repetitive, mundane, repetitive, low value work that has to be done all the time. How do we use Copilot to automate those challenges to free up time elsewhere? What we're not asking people to do is great, Copilot saved me 2 hours a week. I can now log off 2 hours earlier every Friday. Yes, that's great, but obviously it's not realistic. So what we're asking people to now do is spend that time more value-adding work. And just kind of reassure you, kind of the data we're bringing you today is grounded in actual practical knowledge. So these are a lot of the organizations we've worked with in the past. Some of you may on the call be representing some of these organizations. I know there's one person who I've seen, so hello, I won't call you out. I see you're already on the call from one of the projects we've worked on. And I guess all this to say, really, we bring a lot of experience from working in the education sector, working with universities and schools to deliver technology that is human-centered. And I work in the change and transformation team. That's kind of my mantra. And hopefully this slide just gives you that reassurances that what we're giving you today isn't kind of just off the shelf. It's very tailored to this industry and grounded in experience. One project to call out specifically is Queensland University of Technology, one that's very close to my heart and my flat. I can almost see it from here. So we do, as Steph said, we have Nathan from the university to discuss a bit more about the outcome and what we did as part of that piece of work. What I'm going to do now is stop talking about kind of what we can do and actually show you what Copilot is. So I'm conscious many people on the call maybe have dabbled in Copilot, maybe you've played around with the free version, maybe you even have a paid license, but you're not really fully aware of what it can do, what it can't do. So next couple of slides, I'll just talk to you a little bit about what Copilot is, how it works in its simplest form, as well as some key differences you need to be wary of. So first and foremost, what is Copilot? So Copilot is a generative AI large language model, much like ChatGPT, Claude, Google Gemini. It's essentially the way it works in principle is a generative AI, and it works exactly the same. Now, what makes Copilot really stand out from these external LLM tools is that, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, it overlays all of that knowledge that you're giving it from the web or provided sources with all of your work context. So it can ground its responses in who you are as an individual, what your job is, what your role is, your organizational profile, who you work with, the challenges you've got, your chats, your meetings, your emails, your activity across documents, everything you can imagine in M365 that you've got access to today, Copilot can also access. What I don't want you to start thinking is, oh no, Copilot can see things I don't want it to see. That's not really how it works. So I guess first and foremost, it inherits all of your permission. So anything you can search for today, Copilot can also search for, but people can't use that to go around and snoop and find your content and see various documents or chats you're having. So don't worry about that. I think it's more of a benefit that I'm trying to kind of articulate is unlike tools like ChatGPT, which I know for a fact people on this call use, and people also on this call take education content from their work and move it into ChatGPT. I know there's 38 people on this call. You can tell me you don't do that. I know for a fact a couple of you at least do that. And that's what, firstly, it's unsecure. It's not safe. You're taking your work content out of the tenant and then it loses automatic data protection from Microsoft. You're also exposing a third-party large language model to your data. What Copilot doesn't do is start training the model on that data. So again, you're exposing risks to your organization by sharing that content. That's what we want to get away from. For things like basic research, maybe ideation, still use ChatGPT, that's fine. But where we want that layer of really enterprise powerful tools is where Copilot comes into to hand. And what you can actually do as well, you can toggle between work and web. So if you're trying to do something that you don't want work related kind of context on, you can just toggle to web mode. And that means you can just still draw from publicly available information. And then again, you can switch back to work mode and then turn on the ability to connect to Teams, emails, Outlook, chats, Excel, all of that. I guess the kind of big value from Copilot is it remembers who you are, remembers your chats, it creates memories based on talking to Copilot. It knows your business context, as I said, and that key one again, that permission. So I don't have to keep uploading content to Copilot or copying, pasting data. I just say, hey, can you go check this meeting I went to last week? Tell me if there's any actions on me. Hey, can you review this data spreadsheet? Call out if there's any variances that I need to be wary of. Super simple. And is powered by the same GPT-5 model. So from a capability perspective compared to these other tools, it's exactly the same, if not better. Now, in terms of accessing Copilot, again, I won't spend too much time here. I think, once you get licenses or you start playing around with Copilot, you'll see very naturally how it works. But Copilot is automatically integrated, assuming you've got the paid licensed version, across all of the core M365 apps across the entire ecosystem. So think things like Teams, Word, Outlook, PowerPoint, OneNote, email, etc. There's hundreds of apps. I'm not going to list them all. But what that means is Copilot meets you where you are. So if you're working in a Word document, creating a crisis comms or a research paper or a training module, Copilot's there. If you're in Excel doing finance analysis or procurement, Copilot's there. If you're building a deck for a town hall or a webinar, again, Copilot's there. You don't need to bounce around and find Copilot. Where it's becoming really valuable is across some of these core use cases. So we're finding the most common use cases are around communication. So maybe drafting student emails in Outlook, or preparing clearer Teams messages for staff, summarizing meeting follow-ups, taking away or digesting really complicated data for a different audience. It's particularly across Australia where we've got a lot of a lot of students who are maybe not from Australia and English isn't their first language, we're finding the ability to kind of translate or understand content a lot more simpler is really helpful. Also, particularly across neurodivergent use cases. Again, Copilot is transforming how people can use content and overcome any new divergent requirements. From a creation perspective as well, or ideation, it's really great at turning these horrible rough notes that you're scribbling down into lesson content, into briefing papers, into project updates. And as we've already kind of alluded to, they're refining and analyzing, really great at converting raw data or messy data into something that makes sense for most of us who don't live in Excel. And I guess kind of, again, key takeaway for me on this slide is you don't need to be a whiz or a tech person to use Copilot. So you just talk to Copilot like you would talk to your colleague. For example, if I had Steph next to me in the office and I said, I wouldn't say, Steph, review, and just throw a document at her. I'd say, hey, Steph, can you review this document and call out the 3 actions for me that I need to be aware of? Can you highlight the biggest risk? So it's a very natural conversation. And just having natural conversations with Copilot is how you can get the best output from it. So a lot of people come to us and they go, how do I use it? How do I prompt Copilot? We can definitely help you with prompt engineering effectively, but just talk to it like you talk to a new colleague who needs, give them the information they need and ask them exactly what you're looking for. So just before I move on to agents, I do want to call out a little bit around the difference between Copilot. So you may already have access to Copilot today. For those who do and haven't got a paid license, you'll have noticed there is a toggle at the top, Work Web. If you don't see that, that is essentially the quickest way to decide to see whether you've got a license or not. So if you're using the free version, it's still great. It can help you for really basic generative AI tasks, web-based questions, working with files that you manually provide. But where you get that added layer of kind of enhanced capabilities with that licensed version, so you can get deeper value, you can access your organizational content, make direct changes in apps to all of your documents. I think the key benefit for me anyway is this paid version, you get all of the app specific Copilot functionality and a lot more as well. But I just want to kind of call that out so you understand the key differences between the free version and the paid version, and a really quick and easy way to check. So like I said, if you don't see the Work Web toggle, you're on the free version. If you do see the Work Web toggle, you're on the licensed version, just so you know which tool to use when. So now you know the basics of Copilot. I think it's also worth introducing Copilot agents. And the reason being is I think we're very quickly moving away now from a space where, yep, Copilot is great, it's helping me with these use cases, but I have more scopes and more niche challenges. And that's where agents come into play. And I'm going to reiterate this many times throughout the next couple of slides, but Copilot agents doesn't replace Copilot. Copilot doesn't replace agents. They should definitely be used in tandem. So what are agents? Agents are essentially a kind of unique Copilot experience that scopes or adds focus to a specific task or knowledge source or a knowledge area or work stream. For example, you could have a faculties of science agent, you could have a human resources agent, you could have a policies agent, and these are kind of purpose built to support your queries specific to the knowledge scope you provided. So unlike Copilot, which is a bit more general and broad, agents are very specialized and designed for a particular process, role, or use case. There's lots and lots available that have been built by Microsoft, all out of the box available, and you can even build them yourself using basic natural language. Again, we're not going to cover that today, but if you can ask Copilot to summarize a document, you can ask Copilot to build you an agent. So again, there's no real complicated magic you need to take that next step. And again, these are really useful when you're trying to work with more consistent outputs, avoid that hallucination, or you're building agents on behalf of your team and colleagues or staff or students to guide them through a repeatable task. Start thinking about maybe you have like a lecture agent, and all your students can come to that agent and ask questions about the lectures, key takeaways, things they should learn, things that they should definitely focus on for exam time, things like that. Been a long time since I went to university, so I attended the lecture for that matter. So trying to struggle what I was meant to remember. And then this slide kind of just talks to the difference between when to use an agent, when to use Copilot. And as I've said, they're not competing tools. They work together best when using them both for different needs, and they definitely complement each other. So as we've already said, use Copilot for more broad, flexible tasks. Maybe when you're not sure, you just want to draft some content, summarize, explore some ideas, and then use agents when you've got more of a task that needs structure, precision, or a defined source of truth. The real value comes from experimentation and iteration. So as you start to use it, you'll start more naturally understanding when to use which one, building agents to support your use cases and challenges. There are lots of different types of agents, but in summary, we have kind of three basic tiers. So we have a retrieval agent, which is I ask a question, it brings me that content. There's a task-based agent, which is I ask a query and it actions a task. For example, I could say my laptop's broken, and then it could then send that request to procurement team and automatically procure me a new laptop. And then there's autonomous agents that detect data signals automatically create an action or do a task, maybe work with other agents, dynamically orchestrate between other agents, and then come back to us with an outcome. That's kind of the simplest way to explain the three tiers of agents. So what does that all mean for education industry? I won't spend too much time on this slide, and we've got a lot to get through, and I like to talk. But essentially, this slide, and we're going to share all these slides out to you, are just some of the agents we've started to build or see being built across the education industry that are becoming really helpful. These examples span core education, student and staff services, HR, communications, which are kind of work across multiple different variations of a team or industry or kind of your work stream. But I guess the biggest benefit that we're seeing is they're reducing admin efforts significantly. They're improving consistency across curriculum and policy services. They're standardizing responses, which is really important. I'm sure many of you have gone to IT before and said, can you help me with this issue? You've got one response, gone back the next day, got a different response. Agents are reducing all of that effort, or that challenges. And really importantly, it's actually reducing the burden on service desks to support more technically challenging problems. So yeah, take some time to go through this in your own time and see how agents are starting to help across different categories, and maybe it might inspire you moving forward. And then just this kind of final slide before we get on to Queensland University Technology is just to talk about kind of a useful way to start thinking about how to think about agents is maybe by topic, rather than thinking of like, this is my pain point, what agent can solve this. Start thinking about topics that you've got that are very common across the institution or across frontline student requirements. So, for example, student support could be a really good topic and then you can start thinking about, okay, well, how do we support our students? Well, admissions, enrollment, inquiries, timetables. Moving on to like knowledge policy and research, that could be, okay, so what do we do in that space? All right, well, we have lots of policies and procedures, we have governance requirements, we have research and grant related information. Okay, what agent can I build to solve that? If you start thinking of it in that way, we find this a lot more of an effective way to kind of start structuring your agent matrix or prioritization use case for agents. All right. So now we're going to hear from, well, for me again, unfortunately, but Queensland University of Technology case study, talking about what we did, what the outcomes were. So I'm not going to spend too much time here, but in summary, QUT piloted 700 licenses from Copilot, and their goals were to support both academic and professional staff in day-to-day work. So they selected lots of different faculties and divisions across that cohort to test practical use cases and gather lots of qualitative and quantitative feedback with real core guiding principles. They wanted to make sure we were empowering staff to use AI confidently. The content Copilot was using was responsible, and there was clear governance around effective Copilot use. And finally, we built a repeatable framework that was scalable quickly. So we do 700, then we go to 1,000, then we go to 2,000 almost immediately, just because of the model we built is something that's repeatable and scalable. So this is what we found. In summary, and this is only a 4-week snapshot, by the way, just so you can kind of see a high-level view of how effective it was. 95% monthly active users. So that means up to 700 people, nearly every single person was using it across the whole month. Over 4,000 hours across that cohort of 700 people save time. So there's saving 4,000 hours across 700 people, which was then being used for other activities like focus work or different types of work. Based on license cost and time saved, we found a 7.3 times return on investment, which is incredible, smashing all of the benchmarks we had. As you can see as well, lots of agents use, so 3,500 agent uses, again, showing people have appetite for these agents. And then on the right, from our qualitative survey, nearly across the board, everyone was saying Copilot makes them work faster, more productive, improves the quality of their work. And what I think was really cool as well is we surveyed them before we started the pilot to say, how confident are you across all of these applications? So Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. Across the board, all of those went up in terms of confidence. So even though we didn't educate people on any of those apps, just by using Copilot in those apps, improved their competency and capability across all of those those applications itself, which is great to do. And this slide kind of just shows off a little bit, if it moves on, just shows off about how well QUT did compared to the benchmark. So what I think is really impressive is Microsoft every year do a World Trend Index survey to benchmark all of their organizations with where they think people should receive benefits for Copilot. As you can see, QUT absolutely smashed all of the benchmarks across every single category. And this is where I said previously, where all of their confidence levels went up for all these core applications. I think what was great is 98% of our survey respondents said they would recommend a license to someone else at QUT. So I think it's just testament to one, the work we did, but also how meaningful and impactful Copilot is in an education institution. But enough from me. I wonder if we have Nathan available to talk a little bit about his experiences, maybe answer some questions.
Andrew, he's in a meeting at the moment. He is aware that this is happening. He's going to jump in as soon as he can. If we can, are we able just to go into the data security considerations, and Ray will present them, and then as soon as Nathan jumps in, we can cover off.
Yeah, no worries.
That story. Amazing. Over to you, Ray.
Can I take control very quickly? Is that okay? And then you can take it back.
Yeah, you might need to take over the screen share completely.
That's okay. Sorry to break everything. Hopefully not. Apologies, guys. Hold on. Coming. Cool. Thank you. So jumping on to me, hopefully my camera's working. So data security considerations. I guess before I jump in, as Steph said, I am ex-Microsoft, so it's my 3rd month in Engage Squared. So at Microsoft, basically, I was leading sort of the Purview Defender XDR across Asia Pacific. So basically, my world in the last 18 months at Microsoft was all about data security considerations, as you guys can imagine, with AI and Copilot being adopted globally. There was a huge demand. So basically, with my slides, really talking through sort of best practice and really kind of experience with different sort of industries as well as education in the last 18 months. So, but for me, I guess in the context of education. So when we talk about AI in education, most people think about productivity gains, right? So most people think about, faster lesson preparation, quick summaries, quicker content creation, maybe even write student reports, and, potentially do researches. I wish I had AI when I was at uni. I think just the value that AI sort of provides. But I guess the underlying question that everyone's been asking since AI has come on board, and Copilot specifically, is around, what can Copilot really access? When we think about Copilot and permissions, it does work off permissions. So if someone's got permissions that is incorrect permissions, basically it will basically amplify some of the researches around Copilot. When we're talking about sort of the education organizations, with thinking about sort of SharePoint, OneDrive, we're thinking about potentially permissions that are overshared, like sites that are overshared, old documents, unmanaged permissions. Essentially, a lot of this sort of amplifies people's permission and being able to search through Copilot. So when we're thinking about permissions and data security, these are sort of the questions that are being asked: is how can we quickly fix a lot of these permissions and fix a lot of these data security considerations in a safe and responsible way. So really the big question and I guess starting point for a lot of Copilot and AI adoption is I guess you can think about this in parallel to adoption, is it's around data governance, permissions, and data protection. And I've got one slide basically just talk about most of this, but what I wanted to do is basically quickly give you an overview of basically 2 parts that's quite critical to adoption. We're talking about in the context of data security and data governance, there's basically two, I guess, two pillars when we're talking about this. So SharePoint Advanced Management and Purview. So with SharePoint Advanced Management, this has obviously been open. So if you've got Copilot licenses, this is basically, I think when it first came out, this was an additional license, but now this you have, I guess you're eligible to be able to use this feature if you've got Copilot license, which is great. But what that also gives you is the quick wins around controlling the data estates around SharePoint. So visibility to sites, ownership, life cycles around unstyled sites. So probably one of the biggest, or probably two biggest issues that I've been seeing is that unstyled sites. So people that are creating sites and then leaving it and no one's taking ownership of it. So we've got unstyled data that's sitting there. So what Copilot can obviously do is find a lot of these unstyled data. So SharePoint Advanced Management gives you that sort of ability to tackle a lot of these quick wins. So fixing the oversharing, which is one of the biggest ones, that probably tends to be one of the big topics. So when you think about the oversharing, it's basically identifying governance gaps quite early in your journey, and then basically there's the site sprawl. So as you can imagine, with SharePoint probably came about 2012, 13. A lot of these SharePoint sites don't have governance. So we've got a lot of site sprawls when SharePoint Online came about. That's probably sitting there that no one's using. So they're the things that SharePoint Advanced Management can help and basically tackle a lot of the governance. With Purview, so DSPM, which is a new sort of feature that's sort of come about probably the last 18 months as well, but in the last 2 months is basically being unified, and it was DSPM for AI and there's data security posture management that's being unified into DSPM. So the engine behind DSPM is basically the workloads in Purview. So we're talking about information protection, DLP, insider risk. So across all of these workloads, you have the opportunity and also new features that are specifically created for Copilot. You've got obviously the encryption with information protection, DLP as a quick win. There's DLP policies specifically for Copilot interaction. So if you have some of the data classifications that it's mature in your environment, you can basically include that in your policies that Copilot can't process that. And then insider is to basically monitor some of the behaviors, the risky usage around Copilot. One of the big ones that people do, organizations, whether it's education or any organization, tends to forget is the data lifecycle management. The data lifecycle management, which is your retention policies, retaining data you need, deleting data you don't need, is one of the big ones that probably a lot of organizations do park in the journey around Purview. So that's something to really think about, and possibly around meeting compliance as well. I'm not going to detail this. So basically this deck that we're sharing, we'll share that with you guys. So as Polly said, I'll put some links around the notes that you can access a lot of these considerations. So, but look, I've got 10 minutes and I wanted to kind of compress all that sort of information within that 10 minutes. So hopefully I've kind of captured that and kind of leaving you with that sort of two specific pillars, which is SharePoint Advanced Management and Purview. So I'm not sure if Nathan has joined us to circle back.
Unfortunately, no, not yet. He's still caught in his meeting. So if you want a few more minutes, Ray, take it away.
Well, if there's a couple of minutes, but happy to maybe even have a quick Q&A, Steph, if there's anyone that's got any questions.
Any questions? Oh, yeah, there's one in the chat now. What is the recommendation? Should the Purview be implemented before Copilot rollout?
That's a really good question. Look, in terms of there's a safe way of piloting Copilot. You know, there's also, like I said, there's with DSPM, there's also a recommendation in terms of, you know, safeguarding some SharePoint sites that you may not want as part of your first phase. So you can basically run things side by side. But obviously, things to consider. My recommendation is have a look at, depending on the maturity of your environment, whether you've got labels, you've got DLP policies, some of that needs to basically be considered before rolling out as at a full scale Copilot, right? So, but definitely you can run things in a pilot and safe way, and then consider that, and then extend that to a full scale Copilot.
Great. Any other questions for Ray? No. If not, we might just skip ahead to, oh, there we go. We've got one more question. How efficient is Copilot on file shares?
We're talking about on-prem?
On-prem, yes.
I believe that there's no data source to on-prem files, right? So, but I could be wrong, Polly, but my understanding is that only the data sources is in the cloud. So Microsoft 365, whatever is connected. So if your data is sitting on-prem, not to say that it's not safe, it's not classified and encrypted, but that's something, probably a different topic. But yeah, it's should not see data that's sitting on a file share.
Okay. If there are no more questions around the data security considerations, we may just skip forward to the Microsoft roadmap if you're available now, Felicity.
I sure am. I'm just going to take control here. So hopefully, there we go.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
thank you.
Well, thanks everyone for joining today. It's been lovely for Engage Squared to invite me here to talk about the Microsoft roadmap. So let's jump into it and see what's coming or will land in your tenants very soon. Before we jump into the roadmap, I just wanted to remind everyone on the call that the education customers do see a different version of Microsoft Copilot. So if you've got a husband, daughter, wife working in another enterprise organization, they're going to see a slightly different version of the Copilot app. And you can see here on the screen that we bring two features into the Copilot app that are specifically for our education customers. Now, today, I really just wanted to cover very quickly a number of different features that are coming into Copilot or are already there. And I'll be specific about the access to these requiring a license or not. So the first one, and I'm hoping that you should all have this in your tenant, is the Teach app. So the Teach app is a very simple tool to help educators start to create some of that content that's required on a daily basis for teaching in the classroom. And not only does it assist with being able to create some of those lesson plans or thoughts and ideas for lesson plans, but it also does bring in the ability to create rubrics as well for the lessons being delivered. There are other resources that we have available already, and keep an eye out if you're already using Teach module. We are dropping more features in quite regularly as well. So you'll see some of them when you're looking at it maybe grayed out, but very, very quickly they are being dropped into the actual teaching tool itself. We do have this tool is grounded on curriculum across Australia, so the ACRARA curriculum, and then also state-based curriculums if there are specific ones, as I know, like New South Wales and Tasmania, for example. So that's available now, and that's available for everyone that has just a normal M365 license. So you must be logged in with your enterprise license, your organisation, your school's license, email, and then you'll start to access and see these experiences. What we're also doing coming in the roadmap is actually making it easy for you to access the Teach tool. It will become a little app in the bottom that you can pin in your taskbar along the bottom as well for people that are on Windows 11. So keep a lookout for that. An easy, quick way to jump into that Teach companion if you want to have that as a feature on your taskbar. The one that's currently in private preview, and we're really excited about this, is the Study and Learn agent. We've had a lot of feedback from educational institutions where, educators are concerned about AI being used by students to really do the work for them. What we've done is we've created Study and Learn as basically an agent that helps students learn and get to the answer as opposed to the AI giving them the answer. So this is available for preview customers. If you're not on the preview and you'd like to get access to this, if you're an education customer, please just ping me in the chat and I can reach out to you and send you the details on how to sign up for this. This will be dropped into your tenant. I'm thinking maybe in another 6 to 8 weeks. But if you want to grab access to this now, this is available through a private link. But we're really excited about this Study and Learn agent. It will be available free of charge in your M365 subscription. So obviously students will have access to this as well. And we've been doing some on-campus sessions with students, and they're very excited to access this because it is that tool that they can help give them 24/7 access to personalized learning experiences. If we jump out of the actual Teach and Study and Learn tools and agents and just look generally across what's coming into the Copilot itself, you can see with these slides at the top, there'll be a little Microsoft 365 Copilot or Copilot Chat. So it'll let you know which ones will be coming into your tenant if you've got a license, which ones you'll get with Copilot Chat. Some of the things that you may already have, but I wanted to cover them, is that we've dropped into your what I call probably your C drive, but in your file finder, you can now get the Ask Microsoft 365 Copilot experience across that actual file. So you don't actually even need to be in Copilot Chat and ask it to do a summary of that document or to do an FAQ or whatever. You can actually do that now from the file view within File Finder. One of the things I know a lot of our customers have been very much given feedback on is that scheduling with Copilot within Copilot Chat. So this one requires a license, but now you can schedule meetings directly from chat. You just ask Copilot to schedule the meeting with the relevant colleagues, and it will find times, book rooms for you, draft agendas, and send invites. So this is something that if you don't already have, it should be coming soon into your experience as well. And again, a very exciting update because it was been one of the features our customers have been looking for. Another little tip here, and one that's coming, is the being able to do a file summary with Copilot. So when you've created a document and you want to be able to share that with a colleague, you can now use the insert file summary with Copilot, and it will quickly do a little summary in that message for you. So instead of you typing in there, hey, this file's about blah, blah, it will actually now allow you to do that and drop that into the message section when that email gets sent to the end user that you're sharing with it. So that's available now. Another thing we've done is we've actually used, we've had a lot of feedback around being able to choose Loop in the actual Copilot Chat experience as well. So previously you were able to pick files up by, if they were PowerPoint, Word, Excel. We've now enabled Loop in that pick list as well. So you'll be able to reason and reference content that you've created in Loop when using the chat experience in the Copilot. Another feature we're bringing is reviewing PDFs using Copilot. We know a lot of our customers use PDFs. So this feature makes reviewing the content a lot quicker. Obviously, when you've been using, say, Word and you've got content in Word, you get the pane on the right-hand side or you get the features within the actual content. This has been another ask from our customers to be able to have that same experience within PDFs. So this is another roadmap feature. She says it's available now. If you don't have these features, it'll be because of the way in which your tenant updates with updates from Copilot. And you can always check with IT if you're not seeing these features and you do have a license. Another one, which is something that I use quite a lot, and if you're not aware of it, I think this is a fabulous tool. I'm a bit sad though, because, well, you know, you get to the end of the day and you've missed 3 meetings, you've been following them, and it used to be quite onerous to go back and watch a meeting recording, fast forward through the first bit. You really just want those pertinent points. Well, now in Copilot Teams, you can actually get it to create a podcast of the actual meeting. So you can go on a run and pop your headset in and play that podcast. And you can choose if you have, if you want it in an executive style or other different styles as well. So highly recommend trying this one. It just makes going back and listening to meetings a little bit easier, shall we say, in this space. The last one, I think the last one, let me just move along in my slide pack here. Oh no, the other exciting content that we're adding in is we're bringing agents into Excel. And if you have these features, highly recommend you playing with these. We're bringing them into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and this obviously means that you can use different models to be able to get the work done for you. So the actual agent will go in and create a slide in PowerPoint and put the information in and lay it out for you. So it's actually doing the work for you, as opposed to you having to copy and paste it, say, out of the Copilot chat and putting it in and formatting it. So these agents are available, as I said, in all our Microsoft 365 products, and definitely one to play with when you get these, if you don't have these already. A couple of other things, I'm just conscious of time. We've actually enhanced the Copilot memory. Now, this is something that people a lot don't, when I talk to them, end users forget that we do, or don't realize that we actually allow you to personalize Copilot. So this is for people just generally using Copilot or people with a license. So what you can do is you can personalize the way in which Copilot individually works with you. You can tell it to, you only want your responses with Australian English. You can tell it to remove emojis from responses if they annoy you. You can tell it to call you Boris on a Friday. You can ask it to give you an IT joke on a Friday. Lots of different things. So highly, if you haven't gone in and looked at personalization, you should have this. It's 3 dots in the top right-hand corner. Go into settings, and the AI will actually give you some suggestions on what other ways in which you can fill out that personalization box to make sure that it understands the style in which you'd like to be able to have your responses provided back to you. There's also a version of this in Microsoft Outlook, and it will enable you under the settings in Outlook. There's a Copilot in settings, and if you go there, you can tell Copilot how you like your emails to be written as well. So a couple of call outs there on personalization. And then where one, and I think maybe a number of different education customers have asked around being able to use Copilot Chat to reason across YouTube videos. So this is currently rolling out as well. I just wanted to end, if I can move through in these slides here, on a couple of things. The biggest one that I think a lot of people are excited about is co-work. We're really looking forward to be able to showcase this with customers. This is going to be, I think, a very exciting advancement in AI at Microsoft. It's going to be having a real assistant almost helping you do a lot of the work that you need. Personally, at the moment, we have it here at Microsoft. I get a little bit concerned about it maybe doing a few too many things for me. So I'm still getting used to it, but I'm loving playing with it. One update quickly that a number of you may not be aware of. We got a lot of feedback from customers around the confusion between the Copilot Premium and the Copilot Basic experiences, and people confused about how and what they were using, whether they had a license or not. So on April the 15th, we're actually, and we got also found out there was not much usage of the Copilot panel within the apps for Copilot Chat people. So on the 15th of April, we're actually going to start to remove the panel within PowerPoint, Excel, and Word. We're going to leave it in Outlook. So if you don't have a license, you'll still be able to use Copilot in Outlook, but we will be removing the actual Copilot interface in PowerPoint, Word, and Excel. If you're an IT person on here, you won't need to do anything. It'll automatically happen in the background. Last thing I wanted to just end on is we have our yearly event coming up in April, the Microsoft AI Tour. And if you are able to come, I would highly, highly recommend coming along to this. If you're not obviously in New South Wales or in Auckland, if you've got some travel budget there, this is going to be a pretty amazing day. And this year we have Satya Nadella coming out and speaking at the event as well. There will be breakouts that will be education focused. We'll have keynotes, obviously, from Satya and other key corp staff. And there'll be a huge opportunity for networking. I'm going to be there, and I know the team from Engage Squared are going to be there as well. In fact, they're one of our sponsors, which is exciting. If you just go and into Bing and just put a search in to get a link to the sign up, there's a code that I've popped on the slide there. You could try and use that as well. That was one that we were giving to our customers. But we'd love to see you at the tour. It's going to be amazing. As I said, it's our flagship event for the year. And if you are able to, we'd love you to be able to come down to that at the EIC, or the International Conference Centre, I should say, in either Auckland or in Sydney. Okay, Steph, thank you very much. That's me finished. I will go back and have a look at the chat to see if there's any questions there, but back over to you, Andrew or Steph.
Yeah, thank you, Felicity. I will take back control. Appreciate it. So we've only got a few minutes left. So we're going to end with a little bit of a what's next? How do we kind of take you forward from here? Now we'll give you a lot of information, and we're going to share a lot more valuable information to you all after today's call. I kind of really want to just highlight that there's no right or wrong way you can go from here. So with all the options you've now got available to you, might think, okay, well, I'm a little bit confused. Do I do this? Do I go agents? Do I update teams? Do I go Copilot licenses? There's a lot you can go on. And like I said, there's no single starting point or single right starting point. I guess the key message now is maybe internally decide how mature you want to get, how soon you want to get, and what support you're looking for to achieve that level of maturity across Copilot and technology as a whole. So some organizations we've worked in the past have really started with the basics, making sure that readiness, security, and governance and AI foundations are set in place first before even enabling people to use the tools. It's let's look at our data first. Where's Copilot going to look? What permissions is it going to access? What data sources is it going to use? And make sure that's safe and secure first. Others, on the other hand, are we're never going to clean our data. There's too much noise and mess there. Let's just start using the tool. And when we start uncovering challenges during a pilot, then we can tidy them up as we go. And that's why you do a pilot, so you can experiment and test and see where things are going wrong, where things are going right. And during that pilot, what we normally do is work with those, as I said earlier, those identification of high value use cases. So we're targeting our effort to areas with the clearest and easiest options, that low-hanging fruit. What we don't want to do is spend a whole pilot trying to solve the most complicated challenge and giving you no value. So like I said, we really focus on those high value, low effort use cases. And then for more mature organizations, so if you've been working with Copilot for a while now, maybe a lot of self-exploration already, and you kind of want to take that next step, that's where we can start working around that stronger governance, more scaled out approach of Copilot and more agents. And also maybe looking at Copilot Studio for more of those custom enhanced agents with a bit more coding involved with it. And then once we've got that approach that's scalable, repeatable, we know it works across various different faculties or areas of our cohort. From a pilot, we can then scale out. And then what we normally do is we build you a business case and say, like, this is where you're going to see tangible value across these areas. These areas that need a bit more support. And then we can go from there with that scale approach. So I guess to kind of close the call, what we're not trying to do is kind of offer you a quick win or a short way to kind of achieve success with Copilot. It's a little bit more robust than that. There's more of a clear pathway that we need to get to to kind of demonstrate value of Copilot in all steps, from either baby steps or, as we've already called out in this slide here, maybe you're ready to take that next step and go straight into a pilot. But yeah, other than that, really loved all of your questions in the chat. Thanks so much for attending. There'll be a link after this webinar to cover the recording, all of the links and attachments. The deck will be shared with you, lots of resources. So go away, try and digest all this information, maybe have a discussion internally, and then we'll be in touch to see whether you're ready to take that next step. Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining. We'll follow up soon. Have a great day.